could have been a soap. Okay. Jaheed. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Bismillah. Alhamdulillah. Salatu wassalamu ala rasulillah. وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا أما بعد. Inshallah, the sound is good. No. Okay. Chapter number 73, right? Lu Wal Marjan, chapter number 73. Bab Sadr, Al-Thalith wa Sabrun. 73, correct, Ahmed?
No.
Alright, tight. So before we start with tonight's class, a few announcements. First and foremost, tomorrow 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time will be discussion of insurance in light of Quran and Sunnah, in light of Sharia and the fiqh of Islam, car insurance, life insurance, business insurance, protection or coverage against disaster, so on and so forth, premiums, deductibles. If a man dies and he has life insurance, what happens with that money that he had intended for his wife and children? Is that money etiquette? Is it money that is liable to be broken down and distributed among his heirs? Or does that money go to her and them specifically? I have 50,000, 100, whatever the policy may be. Does that money go right to the wife or the wives and the children? Or is that money to be split up and divided like the rest of his material possessions? The ins and outs of insurance. Is it lawful to have insurance? Is it a means of necessity to have insurance? So on and so forth. That's what we're going to speak on tomorrow, being the night time. Every Thursday, or the last Thursday of every month, we have our monthly in-depth workshop on a topic like this. You know where to find out how to sign up. Being the night ta'ala. Those who don't know, those who don't know. Secondly, inshallah, I'll do a brief trivia with regards to tea. Mozambique. What are the top 3 or 5 countries with regards to tea consumption? I got one shot.
China.
This one, China. Number 2.
America.
United States. Number 3. It's Mozambique's turn. No one else.
Japan.
Japan, number 4. I'm listening.
India.
India, 5. Okay. Jazakallah khairan. Not bad. Not bad. Tayyip. Idris.
Morocco.
It says Morocco.
Turkey.
Turkey. China. Sheikh Khan.
India.
India.
UK.
UK.
China.
China.
Turkey.
Turkey.
Or not about country.
Tayyip. Got it.
I say China,
China. UK.
India,
India.
China, UK, India, Japan.
Japan.
Let's see, I'll go Turkey.
And Turkey. Okay. Tayyip. Not bad. Nafi, what you think?
I think it would be number 1 would be India,
India.
2 would be Japan.
2 would be Japan.
No, actually 1 would be China. They have a high population. So 1 would be China. Wait, India or China would be 1.
We'll come back. Ali.
India, China.
What you think, Ali?
Me,
Ali.
I think Britain,
UK.
European, yeah, Saudi Arabia,
Saudi.
yeah, India,
India 3.
then America,
United States.
and
China. Yes. So the last go round.
What was the question, Chef?
Oh man.
That was great.
Tayyip. The top tea consuming countries in the world. Top 3 or top 5. Whoever gets them right will get a prize. With the
England?
nighttime. India.
England.
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 Okay.
Turkey,
Turkey,
China,
China,
Japan,
Japan,
the last one, India.
India. Okay, great. You guys' answers were pretty solid in general, pretty good. None of you thought outside the box, unfortunately. That makes me feel sad as a teacher. All of these years I've been saying to think out the box. The brothers' answers, like I said, were generally solid. But I don't think that any of you took the risk to let me jump out the box, right? Those orthodox answers. So there are two ways of looking at it, Bidni Ta'ala. We have the top 10 tea drinking countries, and then another way of them categorizing it is the tea consumption per capita, okay? All right, so the country that no one mentioned, before I mention the top players, the top ones, unanimously, number one is Turkey, surprisingly. Before India, before China, before Japan, before UK is Turkey. Per capita and the list of the top 10. All right, that's number one. Then we have, afterwards, per capita, we have Ireland. Oh yeah. Now the brothers mentioned England, UK, obviously North, South Ireland. We don't get into the politics, right? To have somebody from the IRA or something at our doorstep now. The politics of North and Southern Ireland, which is a very important piece of history. Because history doesn't repeat itself, but it rhymes, right? And the different struggles of countries, East, West, North, South, Muslim, non-Muslim, for unity, for independence, etc., right? And countries being split between North and South. Korea, Ireland, Vietnam, Sudan, okay? Let alone the different things that are taking place in the lands of the Muslims, Palestine, so on and so forth. That's this long discussion, okay? All right, so no one said Ireland, unfortunately, with regards to tea production, different flavors, let alone consumption.
Irish breakfast.
Irish breakfast, can't go wrong with that. All right, another country that no one mentioned, which was totally out of the box, is Iran. Iran is in the top 5, and some say 3. Okay, so another list states the top 10 tea drinking countries: number 1, Turkey; number 2, Japan; number 3, Iran; number 4, United Kingdom; number 4, Egypt. I heard a brother mention Russia. Who mentioned Russia?
Russia.
No one mentioned
I yelled it out loud.
Russia is big with tea, big time. Oh yeah,
Yeah.
oh yeah. After Russia comes Morocco. Brother mentioned that. Idris. Another country which no one thought about, unfortunately, out of the box is Poland. So hey, all right, let's move forward. List of countries by tea consumption per capita. This is on Wikipedia here. Turkey, tea consumption 3.16 kg, 6.9 pounds. Ireland, Iran, United Kingdom, Russia, Morocco, New Zealand, Chile, Egypt, Poland, Japan, Saudi Arabia is number 12. So number 12. Now obviously you're going to think about Saudi. That's not a bad guess, Ali. You go overseas, the culture, but how long has tea been consumed in Saudi Arabia versus other countries? What tea is produced there versus other countries? Let alone the stereotype of the prejudice that only Muslims or Arab or Middle Eastern people drink tea. There are many non-Muslims, many cold, freezing cold European countries in which tea is like a staple part of the culture, right? After Saudi comes South Africa, UK, so on and so forth, Britain. Then we have the Netherlands, Australia is number 15, United Arab Emirates 16, Germany number 17, Hong Kong number 18, Ukraine, number 19, China is number 20.
Wow.
So the production, the founding of tea, so on and so forth, versus the people drinking it. Allah, maybe the size, Allah, how they standardize it. Then comes Canada, Malaysia, Indonesia, Switzerland, Czech Republic, Singapore, Slovakia. India is number 28. Taiwan, Sweden, Hungary, Norway, Austria, Finland, the United States is number 35. Is Taiwan the same as China? Once again, that's politics. And it's very interesting. If you read about the history of tea and how it became such an iconically famous and popular tea in the West, like most other things, it's around war and bloodshed. There were wars that were fought even before that because of tea, right? And what tea meant and what it led to, right? That's a long discussion. Now, With regards to China, then India, okay? And the United Kingdom, once again, playing a central role in world politics and shaping world politics. After the United States comes Argentina, Israel number 37, France 38, Vietnam 39, South Korea number 40, to the end of the list. Khayr inshallah. All right, guys. Jazakumullah khayr. Countries that drink the most tea. There's another site here. It says China is far and away the largest consumer of tea at 1.6 billion pounds a year, but per person, as illustrated in the map above, the picture is a lot different. Turkey, Ireland, and the United Kingdom are home to the world's biggest tea drinkers. It says the Turkish, for one, don't merely enjoy drinking tea, they downright adore the stuff. Turkey's nearly 7 pounds per person per year is easily the largest in the world. So based off of per person versus the whole chunk, right? So that's 7 pounds of tea a year, Sheikh. Just every person, that's a lot. But inshallah. All right, guys, let's get started with our class. And then who came the closest? Idris?
You guys are rocking with Turkey.
2 out of 3 or 2 out of 5?
2 out of 5.
Who came the closest, Claudette? Nobody, everybody was hit and miss?
It's like equal.
Yeah, everyone had like Turkey
Idris
and
came
China.
closest.
Idris?
No.
Okay. Let's see, inshallah. All right, guys, let's get started with our class. We've got time. Chapter number 73.
Oh, good.
Okay.
Sheikh Muhammad Ford Abdul-Baqi rahimahullah ta'ala says, باب فضل الحج مرة في العمر. حديث أبي هريرة عن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم عنه قال: دعوني ما تركتكم إنما هلك من كان قبلكم بسؤالهم واختلافهم على أنبيائهم فإذا نهيتكم عن شيء فاجتنبوه وإذا أمرتكم بأمر فأتوا منه ما استطعتم. Chapter number 73 states, Hajj is fard only once in a lifetime. Only once in a lifetime. Narrated Abu Hurairah, may Allah be pleased with him, the Prophet ﷺ said, leave me as I leave you. For the people who were before you were ruined because of their questions and their differences over the prophets. So if I forbid you to do something, then keep away from it. And if I order you to do something, then do of it as much as you can. So chapter number 73 speaking on something which is universally known, and that is Hajj being mandatory. Number one, it is fard. And number two, this fard is not a repetitive fard, like the other pillars of Islam. The other pillars of Islam, such as the 5 daily prayers. That's a reoccurring fard. Zakat, for those who have the wealth, it's a reoccurring fard. The month of Ramadan, for those who can fast, that is a reoccurring fard. As far as Hajj, then it is just like Zakat, Salah, but it is something that is only due once in one's lifetime, period. Okay, so those are the 2 points. Every Muslim knows this, inshallah should know this. What's the proof for this? What's the evidence for this? That's another level. The proof and the evidence for that, right? Being able to explain this to someone, a new Muslim, a young Muslim, a non-Muslim, right? Being able to back it up with at least one proof and evidence. Now, being able to back it up with 2, 3, 4, 5 pieces of evidence, what? Different story. Everyone understand this? And this is very important with regards to hardship in the religion. Where many non-Muslims, and even some Muslims, unfortunately, they may think or feel that Islam contains hardships. And it's a hard, back-breaking religion, a burdensome religion. Too many rules, too many restrictions. It's a religion that dominates a person's free life, a person's free time. You can't make this money, you can't save this money, you can't eat this, you can't drink this, you can't wear that, etc., etc., etc. And this doubt, or this misconception, or this fallacy can be easily thrown out the window, easily discarded just through Hajj. That there are certain hardships in the religion. from time to time, place to place, person to person. But I challenge you to find me an absolute hardship that's totally absolute hard upon every adherent of the religion through every angle, aspect, and dimension. I challenge you to find me one. Not two, not three, not five. Just bring me one thing from Islam, and that's Quran and Sunnah. Not this book, Quran, and this culture, this one, this narration. Quran and Hadith is the only thing that I'll accept from you. Now, I'll make a solid argument against someone who's trying to attack Islam. Solid argument, okay? Quran and Hadith that states that this thing is mandatory upon every adherent, and it's an absolute hardship. If you find that for me, then you can win the debate. Whatever you want from the debate, no problem. You can have. And if you can't win, if you can't find that, then you have to listen to me and follow me. And from it is Hajj. Anyone who's ever made Hajj, he knows that Hajj can be a what? Hajj. Financially, how much is the cheapest Hajj package now?
6, 7.
7 is the cheap one. Okay? That's not including the other expenses that you need on Hajj. Taking care of the bills when you go on, get into the airport, etc., etc. Souvenirs, basic souvenirs. Nothing fancy or schmancy, just basic stuff. You're going to spend at least what? 10, maybe, right? That's a basic Hajj. So that in itself, for many people, could be those who live check to check. Okay? Whatever the case may be. Walking in the hot sun. Your underarms, your legs scraping and shaving, and that's a what? Being without underwear for 3-4 days. If you're used to wearing underwear every day out of your life, it's definitely no question. Sinless deodorant, sinless Vaseline, this, that, not sleeping with your face covered, could be. Alright, people pushing you, shoving you, kicking you, wheelchairs rolling over your big toe. I remember, I got stories about Hajj with my feet. I can't give all to you. What's important is I went back to Medina and I was missing an entire toenail. Right? If you've ever missed a toenail, you know the nails don't what? They don't come off that easily, right? It's like masking tape. For those who know about masking tape. You take the masking tape off someone, right? It's gonna burn. So one time my whole foot was totally messed up from Hajj. I don't mean blood, messed up, right? And we have made Hajj so many different times, living there, okay? So if someone runs over your foot with a wheelchair, the wheelchair breaks, right? Some, may Allah protect, someone gets lost. Total nightmare. Where's Fulan? What do you mean? He was just behind me. He was just in the tent. Where is he at now? I saw him back at Mina. Cell phone dead. Speak Arabic? No. Huh? Right? Let alone an old person getting lost. Okay? Or a helpless person getting lost. Or a child getting lost. Right? Or a brother about to have a heart attack. Or he lost his insulin or whatever. Making Hajj. Nah? Her inhaler is back at autofact. She's having an asthma attack. Nah? So many different things can go wrong when you make Hajj. That's a fact. Nah? Getting sick. And the list goes on. Of things that are clearly or can be, what? Making tawaf. Super crowded, packed, people pushing you, etc., etc. I lost my keys, lost my phone, lost my passport. One time my brother, he made Hajj, he had thousands of dollars in his knapsack, his fanny pack. Why would you walk around with all of that money in your fanny pack? He lost the money. Hardship. So the fact of the matter is, traveling, making the Hajj, that's a hardship. But what's the nature of this hardship? Oh, you. How many times do you have to do this hardship?
Once.
You may live to be 70, 80, 100 years. And you only had to make Hajj what?
Once.
For someone who's alive for 70 years, say average age, 65, and you had to go through that traumatic experience one time, what would you call that? Would you honestly look at that as a hardship? In reality, let alone an absolute hardship. Those who are sick, physically weak, those who are financially incapable, do they have to make Hajj? They don't. A woman who doesn't have a male guardian, what? She doesn't. Those who can't walk, they can ride. Those who can't make this type of tawaf, right, they can do it later, etc. So in actuality, the hardship of Hajj isn't what? It's not real. And if it is real, but it's only real from what? Conditional aspects. And that is everything else in Islam. The prayers, the zakah, the this, the that. It's only a hardship, what? in instances and not upon everyone. And within the obligation, there is ease. Pray standing. If you can't stand, pray sitting. If you can't sit, lie down. So therefore, you can't bring an absolute hardship out of Islam. It's impossible. And this is all included in what the Quran clearly states. Allah has not placed upon you any hardship in your religion, in your faith. Min haraj. Okay? So therefore, dealing with those who wish to attack Islam, or find fault in Islam, the different ways of dealing with that argument, Hajj is definitely what? One of them. That's a fact. Through theory and practice. You yourself have made the Hajj, let alone having a solid theory. You guys got this or not? Alright, as far as the fiqh aspect, the technical aspect of the actual chapter, it says, فَرْضُ الْحَجِّ مَرَّةً وَاحِدَةً فِي الْعُمْرِ or الْعُمْرِ. One time in one's life. And anything after that is voluntary. Anything after that is going to be recommended in certain instances. Is it recommended to continue to make Hajj with the overwhelming crowd that's there? Is that recommended? For you to systematically and intentionally add to that crowd. Sometimes making Hajj doing the obligatory things are what? Hard. The recommended things, almost impossible. Nah, because there's so many people there, right? And different people have to make different fatwas. They have to come up with different rukhsa. Oh, you don't have this, you can start on at this time, it's early because it's what? So many people. Nah. All of those people there making Hajj, it's not the first time they're making Hajj. They're not old people that saved up their entire lives. They're not poor peasant farmers from a village that saved up for 50 years to get on a boat. 50 years to be crammed on an airplane to make Hajj. That's not true. A large number of those people making Hajj are what? Professional Hajjis. Hajj groups. This is my third, fourth, fifth Hajj, so on and so forth. Is that recommended? Think about the concept of what? Pollution, right? Carpooling, huh? Right? What do they recommend you? The HOV lane. They want to minimize what? Cars. Carpool. 2, 3, 4 people. Get on a bus. Do this. Because there's 50 million cars on the road, that is a lot of what? Crowd, traffic, and so be mindful. If you don't have to drive, or one whacking, right? Or women making Hajj more than once. Is that recommended? Is that the sunnah for a woman who's performed that duty to do it again? Is that recommended? For her to expose herself to all of those men, uncovering her face, her hands, doing all of that what? Again. That's an issue. That's something to think about. With regards to it being obligatory once, and everything after that one time being recommended, or are there times in which it isn't what? Because of the circumstance. Alright? Khair inshallah. Move forward. So the hadith here mentioned in the chapter is with regards to the Prophet ﷺ saying, Da'uni, leave me be. Leave me alone. Don't bother me. Leave me with what I have left you. Because those who came before you, they were only destroyed by them asking questions and by them differing and fighting and bickering with their prophets. Whenever I forbid you from a thing, stay away from it. And whenever I command you with a thing, do as much of it as you possibly can. This narration mentions nothing regarding Hajj, period. Nothing in this version says what? Hajj. So why is it under this chapter heading? And it doesn't talk about Hajj. The reason behind that is in Sahih Muslim, there are other wordings, versions of this narration that give us a historical context behind the Prophet ﷺ's words. Leave me with what I have left you, meaning Hajj is only mandatory ones. Do we have to make Hajj every year, O Messenger of Allah? Do we have to do Hajj? The Prophet ﷺ said what? Leave me with what I have left you, meaning one time. Okay, so the hadith being understood through all of its variations. The different wordings of what? One hadith. Hadith may be agreed upon by Bukhari and Muslim, but in Sahih Bukhari may have a shorter version and Sahih Muslim may have a longer version. Hadith may be in Sahih Bukhari and Muslim, but there's a side variation to it in Sunan Abi Dawud. A little small piece, a key point, which what? You got this? Alright? So that's the reason behind this. So Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here, or Imam Muslim, listen carefully. Imam Muslim, he says, وحدثني زهير بن حرب قال حدثني يزيد بن هارون قال أخبرنا الربيع بن مسلم القرشي عن محمد بن زياد عن أبي هريرة قال خطبنا رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم فقال يا أيها الناس قد فرض عليكم الحج فحجوا فقال رجل أكل عام يا رسول الله فسكت حتى قالها ثلاثا فقال رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم لو قلت نعم لوجبت ولما استطعتم ثم قال ذروني ما تركتكم فإنما هلك من كان قبلكم بكثرة سؤالهم واختلافهم على أنبيائهم فإذا أمرتكم بشيء فأتوا منه ما استطعتم وإذا نهيتكم عن شيء فدعوه. Imam Muslim rahimahullah, after he mentions his isnad, his chain of narration, Abu Hurairah radiallahu anhu said, one day the Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam gave us a sermon. He addressed us. He gave us a khutbah. And in that sermon or in that address, he said, O people, ya ayyuhan nas, O people, to the Sahaba, قَدْ فُرِضَ عَلَيْكُمُ الْحَجِّ. Hajj has been made mandatory upon you. فَحُجُّ. So make Hajj, perform Hajj. A man stood up asking, O Messenger of Allah, every year Hajj being mandatory? The Messenger of Allah sallallahu alaihi wasallam kept silent. He remained silent. The man asked the second time. And the man asked a third time. Then the Prophet said what? Leave me with what? But before he said that, he said, if I said yes, if I said that Hajj is mandatory every year, it would be mandatory every year and you wouldn't be able to keep up the pace. You would fall out, you run out of breath, run out of money, you would get sick. You wouldn't be able to keep up with it. Then the Prophet ﷺ said, leave me with what? I have left you. Because, I said that already. Because, leave me with what I have left you. Dharuni, leave me be with what I have given you already. Because what? What's the rest of the hadith? The thing that destroyed the previous nations was asking too many questions and bickering, fighting, and differing with their prophets. When I tell you to avoid something, when I tell you to do something, look at the difference. Alright, so this one hadith right there, the version of this hadith, this one narration is a workshop in itself. On Islam. A workshop in itself on Islam, from this one narration. So Nawawi rahimahullah ta'ala, he says here, regarding this hadith and the countless benefits, he says, هذا الرجل السائل هو الأقرع بن حابس كما جاء مبينا في غير هذه الرواية. واختلف الأصوليون في أن الأمر هل يقتضي التكرار والصحيح أن أصحابنا لا يقتضيه والثاني يقتضيه والثالث يتوقف فيما زاد على مرة على البيان فلا يحكم باقتضائه ولا يمنعه أو يمنعه. وهذا الحديث قد يستدل به أو قد يستدل به من يقول بالتوقف لأنه سأل فقال أكل عام ولو كان مطلقه يقتضي التكرار أو عدمه لم يسأل ولو قال له النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم لا حاجة إلى سؤالي بل مطلقه محمول على كذا وقد يجيب الآخرون عنه بأنه سأل استظهارا واحتياطا. So the first issue pertaining to this hadith was, who was this man? The man who asked this question was Aqra ibn Habis radiallahu ta'ala anhu. And the main issue, the first thing that the scholars deal with this hadith is from the aspect of usul al-fiqh. Not fiqh, not hadith, but usul al-fiqh. The theory behind the legal laws, or the laws. The theory, the usul. How do we get this ruling from this general proof, from this specific proof, so on and so forth. So the first issue that the scholars of usul al-fiqh deal with is when the Prophet ﷺ commands us with a thing, when the Quran commands us with a thing, when the Hadith commands us with a thing, does that command necessitate repetition or not? Or does it only necessitate one time? You understand the issue? When there is a command in the Quran or in the Hadith, does that act become mandatory over and over again, or is it only mandatory once? You guys understand this issue or not? You guys with me? Tayyib? Who can give me an example of this? Not an answer, but an example of this, of a command in the Quran. And the question doesn't have to be done repeatedly or not. If you understood the issue, you would be able to get the answer quickly. Establish prayer. Aqimu wa aqimu. Establish. Make the iqamah of the prayer. That's a command. We know that it's a command from the Arabic language. Fi'l amr. Allah is ordering us to establish prayer. Okay? So, does the prayer what, Fahad? What's the issue now?
Is it continuous
Or just once? I made dhuhr, so what? Khalas, I've obeyed Allah. Or is there? Or the command for 5 daily prayers. I made the prayer today, do I have to do it? Tomorrow. So when the command comes, is it something which necessitates repetition, or is it only once? Understand this? Pour me some tea. Every time my cup is empty, or just what?
No.
Once. You understand the issue or not?
No.
Well, my cup is empty. I've consumed all of the tea. I get mad at you. You're a bad disciple. You're a bad student. You're a bad squire. Right? You're not serving me, your teacher, your sheikh. Because my cup is what? Empty. You said, sheikh, you only said what? But that meant? Or did it only mean? Alright, so before we get into the answer, we have to have a proper tasawwur, conceptualizing the problem. And most people today, students, even scholars, different people, they don't understand the problem properly. Alright? They jump to criticize or to disagree without even what? Understanding what's being said. Alright, so this issue, the scholars of Islam, the scholars of usul, and the student of knowledge, you have to study usul al-fiqh. Okay? And you should be strong in usul al-fiqh. Okay? And there are many mutun, different books, explanations of those books that you'll learn and memorize and study with regards to usul al-fiqh. Okay? Khair inshallah. So, some scholars say, well, before the difference of opinion is mentioned, no, he states the correct view, and our madhab is that the command is not necessitate repetition, only once, until proven to be over and over again. Some scholars say the two opposites. Some say yes and some say no. And they use this hadith, and some they differ and they fight and they defend this hadith, etc., etc. So that's number one. The Prophet said, make Hajj. The man, he got up and he said, every year. Some scholars, they say that this proves as that the Sahabi understood that the command did what? It required repetition. And other scholars say, no, he only asked to make sure to double check. That's issue number one. Issue number two. قال الماوردي يحتمل أنه إنما احتمل تكرار إنه من وجه آخر لأن الحج في اللغة إلى آخره. طيب, move forward. Alright, so that's one issue of usul al-fiqh. Move forward. The next issue. لو قلت نعم لوجبت فيه دليل من المذهب الصحيح أنه صلى الله عليه وسلم له أن يجتهد في الأحكام ولا يشترط في الحكم أن يكون بوحي وقيل يشترط وهذا القائل يجيب عن هذا الحديث بأنه لعله أوحي إليه ذلك والله أعلم. Was the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم allowed to use his mind? Was the Prophet صلى الله عليه وسلم allowed to make ijtihad? Could he make an attempt at the ruling, or did every single thing that he said, everything that he gave the Sahaba was a direct revelation? There's another issue pertaining to this hadith. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, if I said yes, the Hajj would be, and he clearly said what? No, what did he say? He said, if I said yes. So, how can this be? Hajj being mandatory every year, is it from Allah or is it the Prophet ﷺ making ijtihad? Understand the difference? You got it or not? Police officer pulls you over. right? And he said you did this, so just stop at this time. Did I have to stop there, officer? And the officer says what? If I say so, that means you did have to stop. Right? Okay? If I choose to put this on a ticket, that means yes, you will get a penalty. Or you ask the officer, is it the law or are you making ijtihad? Understand the difference? The police officer using his discretion versus it is the hardcore, stone cold law that I violated and I'm now getting a penalty. You understand the difference? Can a police officer, can a judge use his discretion versus it's the actual factual what? Law. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, if I were to tell you yes, Hajj is mandatory every year, it would be mandatory. No wajibat. So some scholars, they say this proves that the Prophet ﷺ was making ijtihad. And others, they say no, it was already given to the Messenger of Allah, it was already revealed to him. All right, moving forward. That's another issue pertaining to the hadith. Number 3, قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم ذروني ما تركتكم في دليل على أن الأصل عدم الوجوب لأنه لا حكم قبل ورود الشرع. When the Prophet ﷺ says, leave me before I left you, it proves that the thing is not obligatory until it is proven to be obligatory. Next issue pertaining to this hadith. قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم فإذا أمرتكم بشيء فأتوا منه ما استطعتم هذا من قواعد الإسلام المهمة ومن جوامع الكلمة التي أعطيها صلى الله عليه وسلم ويدخل فيه ما لا يحصى من الأحكام كالصلاة بأنواعها فإذا عجز عن بعض أركانها أو بعض شروطها أتى بالباقي وإذا عجز عن بعض أعضاء الوضوء والغسل غسل الممكن وإذا وجد بعض ما يكفيه من الماء لطهارته أو غسل النجاسة فعل الممكن وإذا وجبت إزالة المنكرات أو فطرة جماعة من تلزمه نفقته أو نحو ذلك وأمكن البعض فعل الممكن وإذا وجد ما يستر بعض عورته أو حفظ بعض الفاتحة أتى بالممكن وأشباه هذا غير منحصرة وهي مشهورة في كتب الفقه والمقصود التنبيه على أصل ذلك. Then when the Prophet ﷺ says, whenever I command you to do a thing, do as much of it as you possibly can. Whenever I order you to do an act, perform as much of that act as you possibly can. This part of the hadith is from the Maxims of Islam, the qawaid of the deen, the mainstays of the religion. And there are countless fiqh issues that fall under this principle. If you can't do all of the thing, you do what you can. If you're too weak to do all of it, you provide what you can. Salah, wudu, ghusl, anything. And there isn't never a time which a person just quits and gives up and walks away 100%. Everyone understand this? You can't wash your left arm, the whole thing, you wash what you can. Nah? You can't stand facing the qibla the entire period, you do what? What you can. So the faqih, he's going to give the fatwa to the people. He's going to make ijtihad. He's going to take 1,000 questions. And he can deal with all of them just based off of what? This principle. Inheritance, money, divorce, this, that. Do what's possible. Do what you possibly can. Be sincere, try your best, and the rest, khalas. You understand this? What a maxim is? A maxim allows the faqih to give an answer, and that's the dalil. The qaida itself is the dalil. In an issue in which there's no specific what? Dalil, right? You guys with me or not? Inshallah, and that's extremely important with regards to the flexibility of the Islamic Sharia. Is that it is a flexible Sharia made for every time and place. Now, moving forward, he says here, and there are endless examples of this, and we're only going to show you a few. وهذا الحديث موافق من قوله تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم وأما قوله تعالى اتقوا الله حق تقاته فيها مذهبان أحدهما أنها منسوخة بقوله تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم والثاني وهو الصحيح أو الصواب وبه جزم المحققون أنها ليست منسوخة بل قوله تعالى فاتقوا الله ما استطعتم مفسرة لها ومبينة للمراد بها قال وحق تقاته امتثال به واجتناب نهيه ولم يأمر سبحانه وتعالى إلا بالمستطاع قال الله تعالى لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها وقال تعالى وما جعل عليكم في الدين من حرج والله أعلم. Then when the Prophet sallallahu then that part of the hadith, it agrees and it complies totally with the Quran. The Quran says, fear Allah mastata'tum, to the best of your ability. Everyone doing that? So the Quran and hadith go what? Hand in hand. Now, when Allah says, "O you who believe, ittaqullaha haqqa tuqatihi," fear Allah as Allah deserves to be feared, or fear Allah in a perfect manner. How does this agree with what we previously mentioned? One verse says, "Fear Allah the best way you can," and another verse says, "Fear Allah perfectly." Okay, how is this, Yafi?
You try your best to fear Allah, and you're most sincere, and Allah knows.
As long as you're sincere, you're not accountable. But the other verse clearly says, "Haqqa tuqatihi," no mistakes, no flaws, no errors. Fear Allah like He deserves to be feared, what Allah truly deserves. One verse says, "Fear Allah the best way you know how," and the other verse says, "perfectly." Some contradiction between those two? Scholars have two main views. The ulama of the past, they have two main views regarding this issue. View number one is that ayah is abrogated. It's abrogated, it's mansukh. Is that the obligation of fearing Allah perfectly and the obligation of fearing Allah in the manner that Allah deserves is no longer mandatory. It was a rule at one point in time, but that is what? Has been canceled. Understand? And the second view is that there's no contradiction or clash between the two verses, but there's harmony. One verse explains and elucidates the other ayah. Allah says one verse, fear Allah perfectly. Another verse, Allah says, fear Allah the best way you can. Meaning, be sincere, try your best. If you make an error, you make tawbah, you keep moving forward. But some scholars do hold the view that it's what? Abrogated. You understand why they would say that? Alright? Moving forward. وأما قوله صلى الله عليه وسلم وإذا نهيتكم عن شيء فادعوه فهو على إطلاقه فإن وجد عذر يبيحه كأكل الميتة عند الضرورة أو شرب الخمر عند الإكراه أو تلفظ بكلمة الكفر إذا أكره ونحو ذلك فهذا ليس منهيا عنه في هذا الحال والله أعلم. He then states, and then when the Prophet ﷺ says, and when I forbid you from a thing, why didn't the Prophet ﷺ say stay away from it to the best of your ability? Let's go back. Whenever I command you to do a thing, what does the hadith say? We can't go forward if you haven't memorized the hadith, guys. In English, not even Arabic. Do as much as it what? As you can. But when I forbid you from a thing, the Prophet said what? The difference between the two tones, correct? Right? So therefore, whenever there's an excuse to do the haram, eating something which is dead, that hasn't been slaughtered properly, carrying, drinking alcohol, making a statement of disbelief out of fear for your life, they put a gun to your head, they say that you're not a Muslim, methadone, kiss the cross, whatever. They're going to torture you, whatever necessity, durura, compulsion. You say those things, those evil words, you eat this, you drink this, which is haram, but in your heart, you're what? You're hating what you're doing. And you're only doing this because it's absolute what? Necessity. If there is some type of excuse, then certain unlawful things are lawful. And if that's not the case, then it isn't the same as the wajib. The wajib is only mandatory based off of your physical capability, your financial capability. As far as the haram, then the person has the ability to stop. He does have the ability. Versus doing something you may not. I don't understand this. And some scholars, they even argue with the second point as well, with regards to certain haram acts. And that's very interesting. Those scholars who spoke on those things hundreds of years ago, before the age of different substance abuses and addictions, in which a person may say or think or feel that, what? I can't stop. I tried, it's too hard. Moving forward. This hadith clearly shows is that the default is not the allowance to perform the haram. The mercy of Islam, the tolerance of Islam, the ease of Islam, that isn't the default. That's exceptional when it comes to the haram being lawful. Everyone understand this? But the default concerning performing the acts and doing the acts is that it's only based off of capability. You understand the difference? They aren't the same. Moving forward. وأجمعت الأمة على أن الحج لا يجب في العمر إلا مرة واحدة بأصل الشرع وقد تجب زيادة بالنفل وكذا إذا أراد دخول الحرم لهاجة لا تكرر زيادة وتجارة على مذهب من أوجب الإحرام لذلك بحج وعمرة وقد سبقت المسألة في أول كتاب الحج والله. No, he concludes his discussion by saying the Ummah has unanimously agreed is that Hajj is only due once in one's lifetime. Clear. But a person may be required to make Hajj for additional reasons, such as a vow. You made a vow to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Whether that is another mutlaq or another muqayyad. An absolute vow is a person vows to Allah to make Hajj. A person vows to Allah to slaughter a camel. A person vows to Allah to pay $50,000 in sadaqah. Right? Something happened, Allah blessed you with a thing. He said, oh Allah, I promise to do this for your sake. Or the second type of vow is a person makes dua, he says, oh Allah, if you cure my sick grandmother from cancer, I promise I'll make Hajj for your sake. I made Hajj 5 times already. My grandmother's sick, she has stage 4 cancer. Oh Allah, if you allow the surgery to be successful, I will feed 100 orphans. Is that lawful? Is that a good thing to do? What's important is it's a type of vow, right? And vows are to be made only for Allah. Vows are not to be made for saints. Vows are not to be made for imams, or mausoleums, or graves, or tombs. Vows are not made for a wali. A vow is only for Ar-Rahman, subhanahu wa ta'ala. So therefore, Hajj could become mandatory based off of a person's vow. Twice, because you said it, because you made that promise. And if that's not the case, the Hajj is only one time. Or another time which Hajj could be mandatory is if a person has to go to Mecca for something. And some scholars will believe you cannot enter Mecca unless Hajj or Umrah. And if that's not the case, then the Hajj is only mandatory once. Everybody clear with this? All right. So that's the end of Noah's discussion. Some further fawaid attend to this hadith with regards to disciplism. Number 1 is what? The permissibility of asking questions. Sometimes it's obligatory, sometimes recommended to do what? Ask questions. The next fact that we take from this with regards to seeking knowledge and teaching knowledge is what? Is don't ask too many questions. Know when not to ask. Know when not to bother your teacher. You being hungry for knowledge, eager versus there's a difference between the two, right? And that difference from teacher to teacher. Some teachers allow no questions. I have many teachers like that. Don't ask no questions. So I come to teach, this is what we're teaching, and that's it. Right? Or if you ask the second question, they'll become annoyed. And of course, that's a very long discussion as far as the etiquette of questioning. Many brothers don't have the proper etiquette. Being disrespectful, raise their left hands, call you by your first name, they'll get smart with you, tell you you're wrong. You say, that's right, Sahih. This is a problem. Some teachers, they don't mind. No big deal, they have sabr. And other teachers will become very, very, very annoyed. And you'll see, as one of the ulama of hadith, he said in the past, he said to the students of hadith, he says, if you don't want to see the worst of me, don't what? Don't push me, basically. And if you continue to ask in this manner, then you will see the what? The bad side of me. Because the shaykh at the end of the day is still a what? He's a human being. And this hadith also goes to show the recommendation for the scholar to be tolerant and forbearant upon ignorant people, upon people that may not have the best adab. Right? The Prophet kept silent after Aqra bin Habis asked. He kept silent. He had hidden. He was forbearant. So from this we learn that an alim should be patient upon the harm and the annoyance of ignorant people, disrespectful people. He should have sabr. He should have thick skin. Another fact that we take from this hadith is what? Is emptying your cup. Clearly, if I said yes, Hajj would be mandatory. So therefore I said once, and it's what? Leave it at that, right? Also another fact from this hadith is what? Is that the alim, the learned person, he should take the well-being and the welfare of his disciples. He should always be mindful of that. The Prophet ﷺ said, if I said yes, it would be mandatory and you wouldn't be able to. And that's why I didn't say yes, out of mercy for you. So the student should trust his teacher. Trust the judgment, what? Of the teacher. That's why you're the teacher. That's why you're the sheikh. You have the knowledge, first and foremost, and you have the experience. You've been down the road and back. So it only makes sense for me to take your advice. Many brothers and sisters, when they study, they can't take advice. And it's one of the biggest problems, and one of the things that will hinder your path, there's an obstacle, is being too wise to be a fool and too foolish to be wise. That's a fact. And many of us, we have this illness. We can't lead and do it ourselves, nor can we follow and listen. You can't lead it too. You don't know when to shut up. It's a fact. You don't know when to just say, let me just walk. And at the same time, you yourself don't know the information. You can't do it yourself. So in life, you got to pick which one. You're going to lead or you're going to follow. And of course, there are times which there's a blend. I'm independent in this, but I'll follow you on that. I'll take your word or your judgment on this. But if you're butting heads with the teacher 24/7, correcting, finding fault, thinking or acting like you know equal or more than the teacher, it's not going to work. All right? Inshallah. So this is very important for us to the adab of what? Talabul ilm. Now, the last thing that we'll discuss with regards to the etiquette of seeking knowledge is asking questions. Is it okay? Is it a good thing to ask questions? The Prophet clearly says that the people who were destroyed, the people who came before us were only destroyed. They were only ruined because they asked what? It doesn't say, it says bisu'alihim. They asked questions. Whether it says bikathra or not. Right? Of course, there are rulings with regards to asking questions. When you can and cannot, when you should and shouldn't. And we've explained all of that before. Khair, inshallah, we'll stop here tonight. Jazakumullah khairan.